growing up, I remember being so excited for the leprechauns to come and visit on St. Patrick's Day. I was taught to believe they'd bring gifts, mischief, luck, and sometimes misfortune. I knew we weren't Irish, but we would have corned beef and cabbage in celebration, and we'd paint four-leaf clovers to leave as offerings for the leprechauns the night before St. Patrick's Day. I always wondered why we celebrated an Irish holiday with such conviction, as much as Christmas, especially across the United States as a country. But also, a good chunk of the world observes it as well. And I just wondered why. So I went on a dive. And that deep dive led me to the answers I was looking for, but also realizing the dark truth of the man behind the saint who helped create the holiday. This is the dark story of St. Patrick's Day and his erasure of the Druids in Ireland. Welcome to Who Are You? Curious Stories of Family Lore. I'm Weetzie.
I'm Sam Ivy.
And welcome. Welcome
Sam.
everybody. Yeah. So that little intro there, I mentioned the man behind the saint and the erasure of the Druids. And that is just a portion of what we're going to talk about. I wanted to talk a little bit about like his life when he was a kid and kind of like the myths or the legends or the folklore behind who this Saint Patrick actually was, and then the holiday that formed and the result, kind of what happened because of this singular person. And then we're going to jump into a crime that occurred that's relevant and related almost 100 years ago to this day. So it occurred on March 16th, 1926.
Damn.
So this is going to air on March 16th, 2026.
That's wild with all like the sixes too, because of my birthday being the 26th, your birthday being the 26th. Like,
yeah. Yep, Marilyn Monroe was born in 1926. June 6th, 1926. Wait, no, June 1st, 1926. Just fun fact that I know that. I don't know why. But yeah. So random. But yeah, so when I was deep diving into this, I saw that I read that story and I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, oh, wait, whoa, that's really, I mean, I guess it's not super weird because it's the St. Patrick's Day Massacre. And we're talking about St. Patrick's Day, and this is coming out for St. Patrick's Day. So I guess it's not that much of a coincidence, but I was just like, well, that's a perfect thing to talk about since I've never heard of it. And when I tell you about it, you're going to be surprised. Have you ever heard of it?
I've heard, but I never knew the details. Like, I heard of the thing, like the St. Patrick's Massacre, but I've never dived deep into it. It was more like, okay, it's up there with all the other ones.
Yeah, I've heard of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
That one I've heard of too.
Yeah, but I've never heard of this one. So that's cool. I was like, oh, what? So we'll talk about that. But before we can talk about that, we got to talk about Patrick. I was going to say patty cakes, but I don't want to be disrespectful. But it's going to be hard not being disrespectful throughout this.
Fair.
So, and it's not intentional, but it's like it's just inherent to this because this is you'll see. So, according to some sources, which I will link in the show notes as I do, St. Patrick was, and honestly, there are different, I'm just pulling up my notes here. I have way too many different things. Where did you go? So was born in, imagine Northern Ireland, but it was ruled by Britain, so it was like more maybe Wales area. So he was technically born British,
Okay.
according to some sources. St. Patrick was born in the northern part of Ireland, but was technically British or Welsh. And so he wasn't Irish by birth.
Okay.
And then there was like a war going on, and so he lived in a small village with his family up in that area, and Irish raiders came and attacked that village, and some sources claim that he was kidnapped and sold into slavery as at 16 years old. And the type of slavery that he was doing was like herding and caring for animals and working on the farm or in the fields and stuff like that. But then one day he escaped. He like climbed up this really tall mountain where every year in Ireland they climb this mountain to honor his journey, basically, of escaping. So he climbs this mountain and he decides he meets God up there, basically. He's like, oh my God. And God's like, hey, you're meant for bigger, better things. You need to escape, basically. Gave him the strength to run away, as the legend goes. So he ran away and he escaped. And that made him like this super religious Christian. Like he was Christian. He wanted to spread the word of Christianity.
Yeah.
But those Irish people that kidnapped him, they were Druids. Do you know what a Druid is?
No, I think of Star Wars and I know it's droids, but
I'm going to tell you what a Druid is right now. Basically, they're the pre-Christian organized, not religion, I guess religion, but without that like spiritual practice where they worshipped many gods, honored the earth. Stonehenge, Stonehenge, where all the rocks are aligned.
That's probably where I know that word from, Druids. Then
yes, well, it's very like there are modern day Druids. It's about what you believe in and what you practice, and also like where your ancestry comes from. So Celtic Druids. But they were villainized by the Christian. So the Roman Catholic Church was trying at this time when St. Patrick was growing up and captured, enslaved by these Irish Druids, is how I understand it. The Roman Catholic Church was spreading the message to all of Europe and anyone that would listen that Druids were evil and that they believed in human sacrifices and that they were graping and just destroying villages, killing the innocent, like really villainizing them. But they really, a lot of those things were myths because they wanted to, I mean, I'm sure there were some sort of maybe animal sacrifices. This is an ancient culture. The things that we maybe think are grotesque aren't. I mean, human sacrifice, that's grotesque no matter what. But I am not saying they did or did not do that, but that is what the Roman Catholic Church was saying they were doing. And so they were like, we need to rid the land of Druids. And so that brings us back to Patrick here. So he had escaped, and he had escaped the Druids after being enslaved. After he escaped, by the strength and of his faith in God, after climbing that mountain or hill, he apparently had a vision from God years later to come back. Like I think 40 years later or something. So like he lived a whole life. Like he escaped slavery. He was I think he became a priest or a nun, or not a nun, a monk, excuse me, or something along those lines. So he like dedicated his life, like that vision of whatever happened to him on the top of that hill and his escape. He was like, I'm for God. I'm for Christian God, one God, and I'm gonna just do that.
Yeah.
And so over the course of his life, he had all these visions that were just calling him back. You got to go back to Ireland. You got to get rid of the Druids. You got to do it. This was God telling him, like, you're the chosen one. Like, go back there.
Yeah, like
And
you
so
have a
he was like,
calling.
yeah. And so he was like, all right, I'm going to do that. And so he went back to Ireland with the sole purpose of converting all of the Druid paganistic, polytheistic believers who worship nature to convert to Christianity. And if they didn't, they were killed publicly.
Damn.
This is absolutely horrifying. Have you ever heard of the Wicker Man?
I've not heard the story. The name. Did they make a horror movie about that or something?
I'm sure they did. If they didn't, this is more horrifying than anything. So, the Wicker Man. I just want to make sure there was 1973, The Wicker Man. But I don't know I have no idea the context. Celtic, I have to make sure that I have the right information because so they're saying so the Roman Catholic Church, so I'm getting this confused. I'm glad I clarified. The Roman Catholic Church, one of their huge points to fight against the Druids was they claimed that the Druids would use the Wicker Man, which was a giant human-shaped structure that was like sculpted out of wicker so that it was hollow inside, and
Yeah.
they would stuff people like in the head, in the body, in the arms and the legs, all just shove them in there, and then they would light it on fire.
So it's kind of like the iron bull. I don't remember which religion does that, but like where they have like that iron casted bull that they would put people in that was like basically like an oven that they would like. I can't.
Yes, I
Like
know
yeah.
what you're talking about. Yes, I'm not sure either, but this is what St. Patrick and the Roman Catholic Church were spreading, telling this is how they got people to murder hundreds of thousands of Druids across Ireland and convert the country to Roman Catholicism. And also, a lot of people immigrated from Ireland throughout history, all over, throughout Europe, throughout Britain. There's a lot of Irish Americans, which could account for why St. Patrick's Day is so popular, because it emigrated with people who left Ireland because St. Patrick was so successful that they ended up, I mean, history tells us, Catholics, I know so many Catholics, so many Roman Catholics, like there's a lot of Roman Catholic churches.
I'm
I don't
baptized
know.
Catholic.
There you go. We used to go to midnight mass. We're not even Catholic. We celebrated St. Patrick's Day. We're not even Catholic. Like it's that they did that good of a job that this man was crowned a saint.
Yeah.
And now there is a holiday celebrating this mass murderer. That's what he was. He made that up about the Druids, the Wicker Man.
Yeah.
They probably did that to the Druids. But I was just kind of like, I never knew that's kind of the reason behind St. Patrick's Day. And then other people claim that the only source of information about St. Patrick's early life, the claim that at 16, a Druid army attacked the village he lived in and kidnapped him into slavery, and then he escaped, that whole story was only exists by word of mouth of this Patrick. But
Wow.
what is more likely is that he actually was raised and born into a Roman Catholic slave trading family, which is why he knew so much about the slave trade, which is why he was able to connect himself to high officials and have the influence that he did. But it made the population more sympathetic with him, thinking of the idea that he was enslaved as a boy by these people. That's how you form an uprising, but it's all
Yeah.
bullshit. Allegedly, potentially could be bullshit. So I'm like, whoa. Whoa. And not to mention, like, we celebrate St. Patrick's Day with only stereotypes
Yeah.
of Irish people. And in Ireland, green's bad luck.
Really? I did not know that.
I've always felt like St. Patrick's Day is just a reason for people to, like, get absolutely shit-faced. Like,
Oh, yeah.
that's all people do, is they just get drunk. Um,
Well, it's like the modernization of it. Like we said the same thing when it came to Mardi Gras. Like, instead of people actually celebrating and learning the history of it, it's just an excuse to get fucked up and, act a fool.
yeah. And make fun of Irish cultures, basically, like, the Irish culture in general, which I never felt like we never were educated in my household about why we were celebrating St. Patrick's
Hmm.
Day. Like, there was no mention of church or anything, or God or saint, like the idea of the saint. Um, but it did create really fun memories
Oh, yeah.
for me as a kid. And oh my gosh, my belief in leprechauns. So there's kind of like that magic. It has, as an adult, I now respect the Irish culture because
Yeah.
of it. So I think some good has come out of it, but I also think, like, more bad historically after learning about this. I'm like, Jesus. Um, Another thing about the Druids, also, before I forget, is that their hierarchy of, like, importance, like, women were powerful. They held high positions of authority. They were wise. They were
That's wild.
healers. Yeah. So there was like this, I think there was this fear also from the Roman Catholic Church of powerful women ruling. And it was almost, I think, like, equal, like, men and women had different, like, I don't know too much about it, but there was like this respect for the female and the male as separate but equal.
Yeah, they had
Like,
more of an equality base compared to other religions or beliefs where, being man is top tier.
yeah. Yeah. So I thought that was also kind of interesting. And so
God damn it,
that's all the
Pasa.
papa.
Sorry.
You're good. But that's really all the history of St. Patrick's Day. Just a kind of a quick little rundown of some of that darker history, and maybe St. Patrick was not the
It's
saint he's been
saintly.
made out to be. Yeah, maybe he wasn't exactly saintly. Kind of seems like a manipulative and slightly a liar.
It reminds me of like a glorified cult slash serial killer, dude.
That's what he was,
Yeah,
committing genocide as well on an entire population of people. That's just seems so, wow, why does that sound so familiar?
like it's happened before.
And is happening again currently as we sit here. It's really it's been eye-opening to do this podcast too, because it's like, as I was reading about St. Patrick, I was like, this is everything is that Fibonacci spiral. Everything, it's like the Fibonacci spiral, that perfect circle, or that rule of thirds. That is also a graph of time and moments. It's like everything repeats in that
Yep.
sequence. And once it gets to the center, it starts again. Unless, it's like, what can we do to change the hatred towards an entire population of people? How can we stop hating each other for who we are and where we're born and what we look like
And
and what
shit
we
that's
think and
out
what we
of our
believe?
control. Like,
Yeah. Now, moving on to the St. Patrick's Day Massacre. So, the St. Patrick's Day Massacre. This happened before the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. On March 16th, 1927, Jean Arnaud planned on having a small party with his immediate family, his wife, sister-in-law, his brothers Luc and Guillaume. I don't know how to say his name. With their wives And then also their family friend or their advisor, aka their advisor, Joey Snaps Bernini, and his girlfriend, Ruth Silverberg. So this is all the people that are involved in this crime line. And so they were going to be taken out, essentially. It does seem like there were other people there as well, just not a ton. So rival gangster Alphonse Scarface Lambert, not the Scarface that you're thinking of, but equally could have been the Scarface that inspired was that from The Godfather?
I
No,
think
Scarface
so.
is completely separate,
I thought it
right?
was like its own like movie and everything. I just remember the scene from
Yeah.
Little Nicky, like "Say hello to my little friend." Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, it was, you're right, it's separate. Scarface was its own separate movie. Which is inspired by a different gangster, but this guy is just as
They could have taken little bits from the Scarface too.
true. That's true. So his name is Alphonse Scarface Lambert. He's basically like, we're gonna use this party to just murder Gene and all of his friends.
Yeah.
So
Rivals.
yeah, yep. And it's a party. A lot of throughout history, holidays have been used to like hide crimes because you catch people off guard.
Yep.
You're celebrating, you're relaxing. It's kind of a terrifying thought, but
Yeah.
crime does spike around holidays. And St. Patrick's Day, you're partying, you're drinking, you're being irresponsible. Crime happens, but especially if you're a gangster and it's 1926. But they were basically like flanked by all sides. All the gunmen, they hid on the fire escape, they hid by the doors, so they blocked them in, set off the fire alarm, and then boom, every single person was killed. So every single shooter escaped. Never caught. They have never faced prosecution for this crime. Oh, I guess apparently too, the part that it didn't say is what they did right before they started shooting was set the fire alarm off so that everybody started panicking, and then they started firing because it caused more confusion and allowed them to easily
get the job done that they were intended to do.
Yes. But what happened was they did not end their goal was to end that entire rival faction by taking everybody out, but they failed because there was somebody who was not in attendance at the party, and that would be the lieutenant. That's what the word lieutenant comes into play. So the Arnaud's lieutenant, so his backup, took over the line, and they continued flourishing and fighting. So this massacre was, in fact, all for naught. Everybody was shot directly in the head, and
Very mob style.
70 bullet wounds inflicted by machine guns into each person. So perfect sniper shots, and then 70 more just into their bodies, just to be sure. And the police investigator, one of them that was on the scene, described it just as an absolute slaughterhouse. Like, there was no way any of those people were living. We're going to survive something like that. I mean, one shot in the head from a sniper would have been enough. Like, they were sending a message. All those guilty in the crime escaped, and a fire had actually started in the apartment directly above the crime scene. And they do think that the tenant above was in on the murders. Like, they planned it with them. There's like evidence to suggest that like they were like, hey,
you're in on
light
this
a
too.
Fire.
Yeah. That is fucking wild, dude. Happy St. Patty's Day, motherfuckers.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. Don't dress like a leprechaun if you're not Irish. If you're Irish and you want to perpetuate stereotypes, great. But if you are not Irish, maybe don't perpetuate stereotypes. And drinking Guinness on St. Patrick's Day.
This is so gross. No offense to those who like it, but it's so gross.
And I wonder the story behind an Irish car bomb, because that kind of sounds offensive, but I don't know. They taste like chocolate milk,
They
but I don't
do.
know. That's the only time that
No,
I am gonna
that's
make
just wild.
I'm gonna make corned beef and cabbage. I'm bringing corned beef home, and we're gonna spend some time with my grandma. Next week, you guys will hear all about my grandma. This weekend, we are helping her relocate, and so you'll get more information on that next week. But I'm not going to say too much more.
Stay tuned.
But yes, this was the kind of all over the place story of Patrick the Saint, quote unquote, and the history of St. Patrick's Day. And do you have any traditions that you do for St. Patrick's Day at all?
Nothing super traditional. I mean, I got told my whole life that like we were part Irish, like my grandmother and my grandfather always like said. But it's never been confirmed officially. Uh, but my grandma used to always make fucking corned beef and hash and like like cabbage like stew and shit.
Mm-hmm.
So that was always something going around. She just she was just always happier. Like she always had like some Irish music going on in the kitchen while she was cooking, like just little things. It wasn't something that we, like sit down and like fully celebrate. But like I said, we're all baptized Catholic and
Mm-hmm.
we pay some respect to it. Like we'd go to the church that was right by our house and my grandmother could, light a candle for those who have fallen, shit to that nature.
That's beautiful, though.
Yeah. Just
That
little things.
is,
Like we didn't try to make stereotypes out of it. We tried to, celebrate it for what it is
yeah.
and really just eat. Eating was the main thing.
Yeah, I mean, that is when you're full, your belly's full, your heart and your soul is full. So, makes perfect sense. And I think that's awesome. And I do think that there is, like I said, the good thing about St. Patrick's Day is it does keep Irish heritage alive, educates people on Irish heritage. Sure, it perpetuates stereotypes, but we can talk
All
about those.
all
And
things do. You gotta think
yeah,
about it, like all practices, all holidays, like it gets diluted as it goes down the line. You go from like the original traditions and what happened from the root, and then as it gets pushed down the line, it gets more commercialized. It gets more, people involved with their own opinions and want to put their own spin on things, which is fine. It's just at the end of the day, I feel like people should really dig deep back into the roots of, well, why are we celebrating this? Like, why is this a thing? Why is this so important that we made a whole day about it
yeah.
years back, like years ago?
And another thing to note too is you have historically Roman Catholic churches have tried to rid the earth of pagan religions. It's historically
Yeah.
proven. And we see that with Christmas. Christmas is celebrated right around the time of the winter solstice, December 21st, give or take. But then you have Christmas on December 25th when Jesus wasn't actually born until April. If you really want to study history and his birth and the guy that is assumedly Jesus, the Son of God, he was born in April-ish.
Yeah.
Not on Christmas, but by making his birthday on Christmas, you're taking away the attention from Yule
Mm-hmm.
and that. And then you come over here. It's the spring equinox on the 20th. Friday the 20th is this. It's like, oh, let's put St. Patrick's Day here and celebrate this dude who massacred all the Druids in Ireland and may or may not have lied about his origins to receive sympathy and converted all of these people to a different religion. Let's celebrate that a few days before the spring equinox so we don't talk about the spring equinox. So that pagan belief, that Druid practice, that really important moment of balance, that literally there's a monument, there's monuments made of wood in Ireland, or not wood, excuse me, stone in Ireland, that light only shines through right at the winter solstice and spring equinox. They've lined things up to mark these days because they were so important. And the Roman Catholic Church they knew that.
Well, it makes
And
me wonder too, have all of our holidays and the things we celebrate, have they all started from such a tragic beginning? Has it all started from mass destruction of a belief just to overpopulate another one?
yes, Pretty
And
much.
that's wild. And that's wild to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And that's why I was expecting, like, I wanted this episode to be like, oh, can we find the spooky history of St. Patrick's Day? And we found something way more devastating. Like the interconnection of erasure.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you get power, you get too much power, goes to your head, and violence ensues in the name of something that's supposed to be good.
It also ties into the whole like follower and leader aspect of like your human subconsciousness. Like I feel like due to so many people not being a follower of their, or not being like a leader of their own, like, you know, being able to stand on their own, like being okay with, oh, I have different beliefs, or, you know, I don't agree with you, but I can respect, because there's not that many people out there. There's more followers that are just like, I don't know what I want, but you sound like you got your shit together, so I'm just gonna go.
So that is the dark St. Patrick. Interestingly coincidental.
Mm-hmm.
Just out of all the days of the year.
Yeah.
But anyways, we hope that you enjoy your day.
Yeah, you know, whatever you guys do to celebrate, keep on celebrating. If it brings you joy, makes you happy, by all means. But in doing so, just keep in mind like the history and those that have been affected previously. And even in your own traditions, maybe try to pay a little homage, you know? Maybe pour a little Guinness out for the homies, whatever makes you feel like you've given that respect. Because everything and everybody deserves respect, you know? Like we might be happy, jolly little leprechauns today, but fucking people were getting shot down at a party fucking in the 20s because of this shit. Like,
Yeah. Yep. So thanks for being here, fam.
thanks for listening always.
And never stop asking yourselves,
who are you?
who are you? Who are you?
Who is thou?